Thank you both for joining today. I really appreciate it. I think Bobby, you had a game last night. Congratulations on the incredible victory. But then, it was in New York, right? So I'm assuming what time did you get off the field?
We got done probably at like 11, maybe 11-ish. And then we hopped on the flight, maybe 1 o'clock. So I probably touched down 5, 6 o'clock.
So did you get any sleep or no?
No, I slept a little bit on the plane.
No, but yeah. I guess at this point you learn how to relax a bit on the plane because that's half your life at this point.
How to get your sleep in.
Yeah, for sure. As a way of intro, not that any intro is required for either of these gentlemen. Bobby, NFL linebacker, playing for Seattle Seahawks, over a decade in the NFL, won the Super Bowl with the Seahawks in 2014, member of NFL's all decade team. The list goes on. Future Hall of Famer, selected to 8, I believe, Pro Bowls and 9 times AP. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. So congratulations on an incredible career. And also we have another legend on the call, Mike Fiato in our field, over 30 something years in claims, correct? He's a chief claims officer at Liberty currently. Prior to this, he was about 25 years at Progressive. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And right now he oversees about 9,000 employees across different business lines. He's definitely a voice known in this industry as advocating for very vocal and dedicated to diversity, equity, inclusiveness. And I know firsthand that he also advocates for technologies, but ones that are practical and meet and exceed customer expectations for whether it's today or tomorrow. So thank you both for being here. And I thought that this would be a very interesting mix because both leaders in respective fields, but approach would be completely different in some cases, or maybe not. So I thought maybe we could divide this into 2 segments. One would be just in regards to leadership. And then I want to touch down on some more techie aspects, such as how we use data in our respective fields and some insights into where we think AI is going to change the game. But to kick it off, let's say for teamwork and collaboration, I think that's one that's going to resonate with both. So in respective fields, I'd love to know whether it's a claims department with all these different characters involved, or if it's in sports team, respectively. How best like what is your leadership method, and what have you seen to be working, and maybe what doesn't work in your opinion? And let's start with Mike, and then I'll pass it to Bobby.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Good to see you, Bobby. It's a great question because I think when I'm thinking about my organization in terms of the big organization, there's some different goals necessarily than when I'm talking to my team or an individual, right? So starting small, if it's an individual, it's been my job, particularly if you report to me, my job is to make sure that I'm putting you in the best position to be successful. So that doesn't necessarily mean that all the conversations are fun, right? But
Right.
what it does mean is I need to do 2 things. I need you to understand where you are, what you're good at, and what you need to be better at. But I also need you to walk away from those conversations feeling whole, right? And feeling inspired and understanding what my motivations are, right? So if somebody walks away from a conversation about development or about getting feedback and they feel like, man, Mike doesn't have my back, then I failed because that's not how I operate. I think as you get to the level of, hey, I've got to address thousands of people, I think you need to do a few things. One is you need to provide clarity, right? And you need to provide consistency. And so if you're not repeating the same messages over and over again, and when I say over and over again, I mean maniacally over and over again at times. I did a town hall before this. It was about 500 people. We talk about 4 tenants. Don't need all the details. I've been talking about the same thing for 6.5 years, right? There's new people, there's new things going on. And if you're not giving that clarity and consistency, it's hard to expect an operation to be able to move, right? Move forward, move to the left, move to the right. So for me, it's those things.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's great. Bobby, how about you?
Mine's a little different, but it's similar, but from a different perspective. I feel like hearing you talk, I think when it comes to my profession, the head coach is the ultimate leader of the team. And then you have the captains who's just an extension of the head coach. And, when you speak about talking about things over and over and over and over again, that's exactly what Coach Carroll does. Literally, I've been with the Seahawks for 11 years now. And every beginning of the season, it's the same meeting. It's all about the ball. The central theme of the program is compete. And, in doing that, guys like myself and the younger guys know what the program's about, what the expectation is, and what to expect through this journey of a season. And, my job is just to be an extension of the head coach. You got a lot of times just trying to relate to everybody and be that extension of the coach because you have so many players, different realms. You can have rookies, you can have veterans. They're all fighting for different things. One can be fighting to prove himself in the league. Another can be trying to provide for the family. Another can be trying to stay in the league and, make money for his family. And with all of that, you have to figure out a way of taking those individual goals and pointing their eyes into direction of the main goal, which is to help us win the Super Bowl. And in doing so, when you put the team first and when you have your goal on the bigger goal, which is the team goal, a lot of times those individual goals get met. And so you're trying to figure out a way of getting guys to buy in on the team goals over the individual goals, as well as understanding that this is a business. Our business is tough. If you don't perform, you get cut the next day. And that allowed a lot of pressure for guys, but trying to help guys be mentally focused, understanding what the bigger task at hand is, and all the individual stuff comes once the team gets success.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to ask Bobby a question, but it creates a brand, doesn't it? Like in terms of who Coach Carroll is, who you are as captains of the team, and the consistency of you being around there for a decade. I think about this in this way, in that we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to create a brand of, hey, we offer you this employee proposition around how you're going to get treated, how you're going to get paid, how you're going to advance and develop to create that commonness of agenda. Because underneath that, it's very different person to person. And it feels like you can't win unless you have a brand that people want to join, right? I want to be a Seahawk because, right? I think we can win because, like, I don't think that's any different profession to profession. I think it actually lines up really well.
Yeah, it's the same. I think the thing that I admire the most about Coach Carroll and the Seahawks organization is all my years, they've never tried to change who you are. They just tried to bring the best version of yourself out of you. And I've been around a lot of characters from Sherm to Mike Bennett to Cliff Averill, Cam, all these different guys. They're all different personalities, all different people, all different moods. Each person have a different way of going about their business. But Coach Carroll was really, really good at finding those guys, getting them to mesh together and getting the best, bringing the best version of themselves out at key moments. And it's helped us over a long, long time.
Yeah, I would assume that, with the head coach setting the expectations as captain, you're basically an ambassador for that foundation and rally the troops towards that direction, right? I'm thinking as me as a CEO, I can set forward a goal or a vision or whatever it is. But if my C-suite, my executives are not bought in and they're not advocating for those things, then nothing will work. So I'm assuming that's a big part of what you do.
Yeah, it's a big part. I've been around it for a minute, so I believe in what he has. And I've, you know, it stayed for a year and got to experience a different culture. And so I think being away for a year also brought my attention to how well the system is working and why people should believe in it, because he's really done a really good job of honing in on what he believes and expanding that belief into everybody in the building. And walk into the building, everybody thinks the same way to an extent. Everybody understand what the goal is, understand what their roles are, and they maximize it. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So, as far as your team's performance and improvement goes, how do you ensure? I'd love to know that whether it's on the claims team for you, Mike, or on the field for you, Bobby. How do you track? What are the metrics that you guys track to know how you're gauging, and then comparing with some historical information, whatever that metric is, to see if you're on the course, if you're behind, or if you're ahead? Let's start with Bobby, Michelle.
I would say ours is easy because it's wins and losses. So the
Right.
more wins you're getting, the better you're doing. But I think defensively, you want to be in the top 5 defensively. So you're looking at third down, you're looking at how do you stop the run, how you stop the pass, like how many turnovers are we getting? Those are the type of things that we gauge. Are we being a really good defense? Because at the end of the day, we could be winning, but not performing to the best of our abilities as a defense. And so, you get the wins, but also you look at our performance at a defense. Are we changing the game in a positive way? Are we helping the offense? Are we not letting them put points on the board? Because no defense wants to be a part of a game where you win, but it's 65-60 and you're giving up 60 points. No defense
Right.
wants to be a part. So it's not just about winning to an extent. It's about the quality of the wins and can you perform at a high level for the defense. And so we look at those type of measures to see how we're doing.
Interesting. And then what about so those are in-game metrics. Do you track any metrics during training, for example, coming up to a game?
I think we'll track like the stuff that we track is more so like how much energy we're exerting throughout practice. Cause at the end of the day, you want to be your best self on game day. And so you don't want to peak too early or peak too late. And so we track how much energy is being put in practice. So if you overdo it one practice, they may taper it down. Or if you don't go hard enough, then they might bring it up. So that's what we do to gauge. Obviously, nutrition, diet, all those things play a factor in how you play on Sunday, Monday, or whatever day we play. So those tracking.
Makes perfect sense. Is there anything like, I'm just curious, is there any metric during training that you may track that may give you an indication of how well the team will perform on a game day?
Not in our business because
Right.
it's you could be feeling great, you could be doing great, everything would be fine, and then you just have the ball now bounce your way come Sunday, Monday, or whatever day. So that's a little tougher to track, but I think there's things that you can track that make you feel good going into the game, that you have the best chance to succeed that day.
Yeah. Like the hydration and the body. That makes perfect sense. Mike, I'd love to learn more. Same question, but in your world.
Yeah, I worry about my hydration sitting at my desk. A lot.
Me too.
After my little elliptical workout in the morning, make sure I get enough fluid. It's a good question in that I think logistically, claims can be complex, right? Because you've got different lines. So you've got home and you've got commercial and you've got auto, and then within auto, you've got some injury stuff. And so I think there's a couple of things. It's what can you control versus what can't you control, and being able to identify those things. And then we are an industry of limited resources, right? So I don't have unlimited tech dollars. I don't have unlimited funds to hire as many people as I feel like hiring. There's standards around things like how efficient you need to be. So there's loss adjustment expense. And if you're spending too much money on people, you can't be competitive because it flows into rates. And if you're not accurate in terms of paying what you owe, in terms of identifying customers, you're not going to be competitive either. So I think our ultimate in insurance, the ultimate metric is combined ratio, right? It's like, did you underwrite a profit? And being amazing in this industry is that you make 3, 4, 5 cents per dollar, which makes me question my judgment many years ago about why I got into this industry. Other than it's a lot of fun and it's very interesting. But I do think accuracy is a metric, right? Can we look at the quality of the work that we do? Can we identify our defects and fix them? Efficiency. Are you using your resources in the way that you should be using them? Are you, whether it's investing in human development, right? So the human performance, or it's tools and tech. How are you putting your dollars and then your other people to work? Customer service, right? You need to be able to actually, we have a saying, my company, it's delivering on our promises and providing peace of mind. You have to be able to do that. You have to be able to meet the customer's expectations. You have to be able to do what you say you're going to do. And that sounds easy. It isn't, right? Because there's a lot of competing interests. And then lastly, how do you ensure that your organization is engaged, right? And whether that's making sure that everybody feels and is seen and heard and respected and provided the same opportunities across the board, but also building the best and candidate pools, right? Are we using everybody, the population of people to be interested in a role, and finding the best people to hire the best of the best so you can be successful? I think there's thousands of metrics and claims, right? We can measure timeliness. I can tell you how many bumpers we repair versus how many bumpers we replace. A lot of the metrics that we use are less about yes, no, right, wrong, and more about trend and associating to, are we doing things consistently? And when we look at them from a quality perspective in an objective way, are we comfortable with what we're doing? So you can say, yeah, we could be better at this. So I want to improve that trend, right? Versus not understanding that. And I think a big piece of metrics in my world is the metric itself doesn't mean a lot unless you can create an insight from it. And the best metrics are the ones that create actionable insights. So I see something and I know based on that there's an action or an activity that I can do that will make it better. And so to the degree that we are constantly in that stream of perpetual performance improvement, looking for those opportunities to get better, you have to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. In terms of reviewing those metrics, so let's say you gauge the metrics, whatever cadence it may be. Bobby, you mentioned that your team looks at in-game metrics as far as how the team performed. I'm curious. So what is the process in gauging those metrics? Do you, as a team, review these metrics before each game, or is that like, do you have someone that reviews this for everyone and just like gives everyone a review? How does it work?
No, because each day has its own theme, and
Right.
we go over each kind of portion, break it up, whether it's first and second down, run, pass, third down, things of that nature. And you got like a percentage of how well you did, and you compare that across the league. And so you see like, where do you rank across the league on certain numbers and certain things? And if you're not doing that well, then we're talking and trying to figure out, all right, what can we do better? What's working? What's not working? What do we need to switch? Obviously, you don't change your whole philosophy. There's something that you're doing that they're, in my world, attacking, that we need to play better. And so it's going back to the basics. Sometimes you could have too much, or you could be doing too much. You need to dial it back and you need to simplify it for it to be more successful. We've gone both ways, but a lot of the times it's just going over the things that we do well, the things that we don't do well, and then figuring out what is it that is causing us not to do well, and emphasizing to make sure that we do it better.
I like from what I'm hearing, it's very structured, right? Me as the tech guy, I'm just wondering, do you not track data on the contesting teams, the ones that you're going up against? I would think that I would want data to know like which player is fighting with his girlfriend. Yeah, just so I know which ones are going to be more emotional.
I don't know, you have stuff like that. Like you have stuff like that comes out, whether it's family, friends, or whatever. And that's more a tactic. Can you get into
Right.
somebody's it's not really a metric that you can measure because not everybody puts their personal life out there like that. But if we're going into a game and we know a guy is a hothead, then we might bump a little bit after the play, or we might do something to get him fired up to get a flag, or maybe we can get him kicked out of the game because he can't control his emotions. That's like more like tactic type things. Because refs know if you're a guy that is a hothead, refs know and they're ready to throw the flag. Sometimes we'll try to see if we can engage them to get them to throw that flag and use it in our favor. But we don't have those type of metrics though. That's more mental and just paying attention.
I was chuckling when Bobby was talking because he was talking about how many things you can do, right? And keeping it simple. And we struggle with that at times in our organization because you can get better at everything, right? Theoretically, you can get better at every single thing you do. And how do you simplify that and identify the things that are the most important to focus on? And then I was thinking, if you are an individual football player on a team, right? Your capacity for change has to be epic almost, right? Because you've got your position coach, you got your head coach, you've got the team, you've got the situation, you've got the guy who's going to be potentially blocking you. You're covering a different type of receiver across the middle every week. We struggle with that same thing. And it's a huge consideration for us about how much can we improve upon at any given time, because there's a change curve and there's change capacity limitations for individuals and teams. And once you kind of surpass people's limit, it all falls apart, not just the next thing. And so it becomes one of those things where you spend a lot of time kind of monitoring the organization to see, are we making progress with these things? And if we're not, is it too much? Is it just a lack of execution? And then constant diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, how do you, so I'm familiar with your world and you hinted at all the metrics that matter for, like, how do you go about reviewing those metrics? What is the cadence? What is the process in your organization to review and find out how to improve or decide on what you want to improve on?
Yeah, I think it really, the metrics that you're focused on, there's some that are going to align to your strategy, right? Which may be more high level and maybe more like ultimate outcome based. And then you've
Yeah.
got your day-to-day operational tactics that you put in place. And now you've got things that are more detailed, more granular that you want to look at. The issue is it's hard to look at stuff real time, right? Like it's hard to say making day-to-day in-game, like in the moment adjustments in claims is hard, right? But you're doing it, you're trying to do it all the time. You're trying to look at, and that's individual coaching, right? So that equates to, I'm a team manager, I'm a supervisor. I have dashboards and ways to look at data. One of the things that we spend time looking at is how can we identify teams or people on teams that might be outliers, not to point the finger at them or to have it be negative, but to understand, is there an opportunity to help a leader be better at something because their ability to execute is like, it could be 5x, it could be 10x. It depends on how many people they lead and manage. And we're always looking for ways to define. It's like from an AI perspective, right? Like, how do you take data, lots of data, and create models that help you build insights into how you get to the right outcome, whether it's in the fraud arena, whether it's in the way you evaluate a claim, the way you repair a car, the way you talk to a customer. All those things at some point become more knowable than they were a year or 2 years ago. And so the adjustments that you have to make with that can be small, or they can be profound because they might be insights you didn't have before. But I do think the metrics that we focus on are the ones that will help us get better fast, right? In the field. And then we have the other stuff we've got a healthy organization, and that's a slower, more methodical, more deliberate set of activities.
Yeah. You mentioned you did it, not me. You mentioned AI. I'd like to, because I know obviously in your world, it's all the rage right now. Bobby, I know that some may not know, it's not really a secret, but you're an incredibly savvy business person, operating partner at Hughes Ventures. So you deal with a lot of companies also. So I'd like to understand, Mike, you had a panel at Connected Claims, and I did a keynote right after. My focus was the intricate relations between AI and claims as we know it today. And one of the things I was about it is how humans plus AI always outperforms AI, at least when it comes to claims. And the perfect example for this is if you remember in 1997, Gary Kasparov, which was the best chess player at the time, lost to Deep Blue, IBM's Deep Blue, and was all the rage because that's what machine overpowered. And chess is always, that pinnacle of human intelligence. That's why it's always used in these AI discussions. But then recently, one of the best chess players, Magnus Carlsen, this was, I think, last year, he beat an AI game, which was exponentially harder, but with the help of AI. He plus AI beat a AI chess game that was performed by exponentially more intelligent AI than IBM's Deep Blue. Now, Bobby, you mentioned, I think that I took note of this, that someone is hot-headed, so you might bump him a little more. These are the intuition. This is exactly, in my opinion, what is going to never be replaced by humans. I mean, these are the intuitions. These are the building patterns, not just reviewing patterns. And in claims, I would argue that human side of things, that human touch, that context, and that experience is something that's not going to be replicated. So my personal view is that it's forever these industries are going to be catapulted with the use of AI, but it's not that we all need to fear the job securities and so many other things. I'd love to learn, Bobby, how is the NFL or how is your team using AI, utilizing AI, or if it's not being utilized that much, how do you foresee AI playing a role?
I think it's making its way in every single field, to be honest. The league is partnered with Amazon. They got Amazon Prime. They got next gen stats. They have all these different metrics that are tracking how fast players run, how, what a player looks like in the pass coverage, run fits, things of that nature. And it's players get mad at it sometimes because you'll play a game and then you'll get this grade that this computer gave you based off your performance. And you're like, how does a computer know what's the difference between cover 2 and cover 4 and cover 3? And at first, this was maybe like 5, 6 years ago, they started doing these kind of websites and stuff. And the first players fought it. And then at some point you recognize that either you're going to work with it or it's going to work against you. And so you started to figure out how they're using it, what they're trying to do with it. And it's just going to happen more and more. I think a lot of times they're trying to use it to track like injury prevention. And so they'll use a certain technology. Right now they're scanning helmets and things of that nature. They got computers scanning that. They got computers scanning the footwear. They got all these different things that are taking into account like what can be affecting the player's health. And I feel like the more and more we get comfortable with it, the more and more we use it, the more and more I feel like we'll adapt to it. Because at some point you have to adapt to it. And it's not gonna, like you said, I had a year ago, I think it was like a year ago where we had a player that I don't think he's good to practice today. And then the players, I feel amazing. And then they're like, okay, we'll go practice. And obviously we're still going to take into account human experiences and how they're feeling, but it's just a way to help players just be healthy and stay safe in our game.
So it's your view that are you pro AI or are you one of the players that fights it?
I think I was always against it. So now maybe I'm in the middle. I'm not going over the top yet. You keep seeing it over and over again. And at some point, you just can't fight it.
That's a totally legitimate stance because at the end of the day, AI is just a model that trains on historical data. And it's really dumb until it's genius, right? And the problem is, in order for it to turn smart, it needs to it's going to be horrible, and it's going to drive everyone crazy, and it's going to be inaccurate, and it's going to have biases, and it's going to have issues. But it's that you have to commit to it, and that's really the hard part. I'm assuming for you too, Mike, right? In organizations, is that you have to commit to these models to keep feeding it the correct data, not with as little bias involved as possible. And then with that commitment, then things will improve. But so if I were you, I would agree with you. It would be in such a competitive field where a computer is narrowing everything down to an Excel sheet or numbers, and it's not very smart to begin with. I would fight it too. But it's what it takes in order to build a very intelligent model.
Yeah, but there's a whole other side of this that sometimes gets lost, right? Which is we use AI all the time. You get data scientists, you get these large language models, you get really huge pools of data, and data is where it is, right? Data is where it is in sports, it's where it is in insurance, and pretty much every industry and everything we do. But it really, it's only as good as the execution that is created from the conclusions, right? So I'll put it in insurance talk and claims talk. I can use AI to create through looking at all the artifacts associated with an investigation. First, it can go grab the stuff. Second, it can look at all that, consume it, and give me a recommended range of fault based on parties, right? I've got to agree with that or disagree with it. I've got to actually, I was the one who heard the tones and assessed the credibility of the parties. I was the one who actually looked at the scene, and then I have to go have this conversation with these folks and explain my position. If I can't do those things correctly, if I can't deviate when it's appropriate, the AI doesn't really amount to much. If we use AI in fraud models, if we don't know how to investigate fraud, somebody points us towards it, so what? I'm going to end up paying those claims if I don't know how to determine if there was actual fraud or not. I would imagine in your world, Bobby, it can tell you all that stuff. But if you keep missing the same tackle, it doesn't matter that it put you in the right position. You're just not. Now, that wasn't the case last night. You had a lot of tackles last night, but I think it's always going to be about human execution at the end of the help you got. And that's what it is. It's help. It's insights.
I agree.
Bobby's always, in the few meetings that I've been with Bobby, he's always like, I've always been surprised. He takes so much notes. And in one meeting, I was talking about how this is going to be $1 billion company. He just wrote $1 billion company. And I'm worried that one day he's going to tackle me if we don't make it. That's really interesting. Just I think one question I wanted to ask, Bobby, you mentioned that you know, players often thought that there is these models or this data that gets spit out. A lot of times doesn't tell the whole story, right? And this is very relevant to claims because we're talking about the ethics of AI and big data, and does the output provide a clear, cohesive picture of what's going on? How have you seen that improve over time? And if so, like how? Or how do you see it improve if it hasn't yet?
There's a particular platform that kind of rates each player, each team, and what you were saying, like the AI only can do so much, and it only can be as smart as the help that it's getting, and it only gets smarter at help. And so I think when this website came out, they were like, if somebody was in the area, they would count it against them. So if you caught the ball and I'm in the area and you caught it for 10 yards, that 10 yards would go to me. Now I could just be hustling to the ball, trying to make a tackle. It wasn't my assignment and I'm just hustling. And so I'm getting dinged on this website for something that's positive. And so when you sit down and you break that down with the people that are running the AI and taking and inputting the information and trying to feed it the knowledge so it can get smarter, I think that's what has allowed it to get smarter over time, is the willingness of current players and former players to explain the coverages, explain the job assignments of what each person is supposed to do on the field. That way it helps the people that are helping the computer get smarter, make better decisions. And as that happens, it's gotten a little bit more accurate over time.
That's very well said. And I think, Mike, this probably resonates in your world, right? Because historically, we're talking about black box AI. Not a whole lot of things are explained. We're now, I think AI is really evolving. I know in everything we do, it's all about transparent, ethical AI. And we have an explanation, evidence for every single finding. And that's definitely the direction that it's going towards. But in order to get there, to your point, Bobby, the proper data and insights need to be fed into the model. How do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I was thinking when Bobby was talking, so on my fantasy football team, right? You get, well, really, you get recommendations, right? So you probably play fantasy, Bobby, or have at some point, maybe. No, don't,
Nope.
because it's addictive. Maybe when you're all done someday. But I think here's what happens, right? There's a lot of models out there that'll tell you you should start this person on your team versus this person. When you get to game day, you're like, who's in, who's out, what's the weather like? All those little things in almost literally up to the game. And you're like, I'm picking that guy versus that guy because I think the nuance associated to all that good information is going to change the decision. I just to step back a second, I think part of where you said, Bobby, you're halfway up the meter on how bought in you are on this. I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, I came to this epiphany, right? Where it was like, I just have to let go of all of these several decades worth of this is how we do things. This is a golden rule that we're never going to break. And it's not that you're going to create chaos or do things in an irresponsible fashion, but you got to be open to possibilities around things that might be, and you have to be willing to consider it. And you have to have that thought leadership courage to make sure that your team is talking about it and make them uncomfortable enough to consider, hey, if we did this, what would it mean? And if we did it, would it work? Kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're never going to do anything but incremental stuff, right? Like the winners in my world move past incremental and they go from step 3 to step 6, not step 3 to step 4. And then they go 6 to 9. And now they're 5 steps ahead of everybody else. And I can guarantee you it's not comfortable. There's a lot of people probably not sleeping wondering, man, I hope my boss is bought in because I might not be doing this here if this doesn't work out, right? So I do think there's a certain amount of responsible risk taking associated to the things that we understand and are knowable. Because again, what are you going to bet on? I think teams bet on themselves. I bet on the people who are in my organization. And I think it comes from, if you know them well enough, like you got to trust people and you've got to like have the vision of them being amazing. Because if you don't, if that's not what you're portraying and what you believe, they won't be.
Right.
Yeah,
They're just going to be average. And there's a lot of average out there.
that's right. Yeah, very well said. Last question, and I'll let you both go. And I know probably Mike is going to have more opinions on this one, but let's say roles reversed. Mike is now NFL linebacker and Bobby is a chief claims officer at Liberty. I'd love to know what would be number one priority on your list. Mike, you go first. Of course, it's going to be easier for you, Mike. Bobby, insurance claims is much more nuanced, but I still love to hear your feedback. Bob,
First thing
Mike,
is close for a guy who's like 5'7" and $150. So that's the first problem you're going to face. But I get to be 6 foot plus, athletically superior for a couple of days. I'll take it. I think the thing that if I were either running or part of an active part of as an athlete, a part of a team, and I had a leadership role, I think that there's 2 things that I would focus on, right? Which were trust, because you don't win without trust. You don't have to like people, but you got to trust them, and knowledge. I think my guess is the best players know what everybody else on their team is doing and probably what everybody on the other team is doing, every assignment.
Yep.
And so I think in in my world, it's does the team manager, does that supervisor know more than their reps and can provide different views? And because of that can help them get better. And I think if I'm in that role, I want to be able to help my team in a way that says, if we're all in the right place at the right time, it's hard to lose. Just is. You'll make some mistakes, but it's just hard to lose. And that, not saying that's easy, but man, that would be some fun. Because now I'm just old and slow, but it would be fun to be fast again.
Well, yeah, when you,
I say if it was me, the first thing I would do is I would find a mentor and I would have them teach me everything I need to know about the business. Cause I think being a leader, what you were saying, trust is the biggest thing. If I was to just take over the company and then no one believed that I knew what I was doing or was going to drive this company into an even better place than where it's already at, then I feel like I've already lost. And so for me, I would take the time to understand not just the company, but the people and the operations and what do they like, get the feedback? What do they feel can be improved? What do they like? What do they dislike? And I think I would just start there. And once I start there, then we can see once you understand the business and then you understand the people within the business, then you can set a goal and you can come up with a plan to reach that goal. So that's how I would approach it.
that was spoken like a true athlete.
I love the continuous learner kind of mindset. Part of being successful is being curious, right? And just continually asking questions. Yeah. This crazily enough, after all this time, I still have fun every day. I feel like I learn, which is cool.
That's dope.
Well, gentlemen, I know we're at time. I really appreciate both of you taking time, busy schedules. Means a lot. Thank you so much. And I think this was a really funny conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Bobby. Good luck the rest of the way. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Take care.
He doesn't need luck. Have a good one.